When using FX for sound design, as I've told you already when showing you all the reverb and delay, those kinds of effects, they could be used for production purposes, giving depth to sound, a sense of dimension with the dimension and hyper plugin, but they can also be used as an integral part of sound design. Now, let's go into some examples. First off, let's create a very basic bass sound. I'm going to leave this sawtooth right there as the thing to go from. I'm going to use a filter, a low pass filter, maybe one with a higher slope. And I'm going to use an envelope to control that filter. Like that, something like that. Well, the reason I know approximate settings for these is a lot of practice. So now what I would also like from this bass sound is not to change the phase of this oscillator every time I pluck another note. So I'm going to make this phase not random, and I'm going to make it start from a specific phase where I want it to, so that the note always has the same attack, if you will, every time I click it. Okay, so we have that as a bass sound. Nice. I can add another oscillator, just the same one, just like that. Maybe even detuned with lower volume. And push it through the filter too. Just lowered the oscillator volume of the oscillator B, made its phase also constant, and added some unison. So you see, depending on the phase, I'm already getting tons of different variations if I just move the phase of the second one. Now, when creating sounds, I prefer to have a spectrum analyzer on the side, like this. Let's say I put it on the master channel. Okay, so I can see that too. I'm going to remove, okay, this massive for the moment. So that's what it looks like on the analyzer. And as I move the phase, you can see all these harmonics changing values. Just like that. Okay, I like that. So let's use some FX for all of this. So maybe some distortion. Maybe like that. For now, I'm just going to be playing with the filter of this distortion. Now, I like that, but now we have lost that bass out of that, so we don't have that first harmonic, we don't have that sub and bass frequencies by adding this distortion with this pre-filtering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this sub-oscillator, which now also being distorted going through the filter doesn't really work for us. So I'm going to make it have a direct out that I've shown you already. So it's going to go out, bypassing the filter and bypassing all of the FX chain. So you see, now I have the bass. I can even choose a different waveform, maybe even more. No, that's the most I need. So this distortion, I like that. I can even add some delay now, since my bass part of the sound, my low frequency part of this sound, is not going to go through all this chain, so I can even introduce some delay, which would not really be smart for a bass sound repeating over and over all the low frequencies. We could have some phase issues, but since those frequencies coming from that oscillator are not going through the FX chain, I can actually do whatever I want. I'm going to do this faster. It's too much. That could be cool. Let's try that without any of that. Let's try some reverb on it. Because you do know I'm adding reverb only to the higher portion of the sound. The sub is not affected. The bass portion of the frequencies are not affected and they are not being reverberated. Now that's all well and nice, just distortion, delay, reverb. What about some other effects that could really give us some space? Well, let's say we want to use dimension. We also wouldn't want to use anything like detuned or dimension kind of effect on a sub-frequency, since that would also cause tons of problems with phasing, cancellation. We want the sub part, the low frequency part of this bass sound to remain mono. So we don't want any stereo on that, but on the piece of the signal going through here, we would like that stereo. I like that. Let's go on. We can try the flanger, see what happens, see if we like anything, like right here, flanging. We can also turn off this rate. No, I don't think it fits our bass sound. Maybe some phasing. If I turn the rate down all the way, it won't be changing where those notches, if you remember, on the phaser are happening, so it will remain static. The phasing element will be just frozen in that one position. So you see, I'm getting no change whatsoever. If I raise the rate, and I wouldn't want that, so I want it static. I like that. I'm just gonna remove a bit of that and just let the dry go through more. Just a tiny bit of that, just a tiny touch of that. Now what I could also do is add some compression to this bass sound. And this is all being added only to the piece of the signal that is coming from these two oscillators. The sub-oscillator goes directly into the amplifier. So I can try to compress that upper piece of the signal with this multiband I mentioned in the lesson about insert FX. Now using this compressor, I can actually play with the spectrum balance of all of those. So I can even turn off the sub, just for now, just to see what I'm going to get from my upper piece of the signal. Nice. I can pull the level down a bit on that sub. I think it's too hard. Nice, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. I might even save this for the next song. So we have that. We can activate this delay just to see. Now, this delay, since it's being linked in a BPM, I can only effectively play it with the actual metronome to get something resembling good, and the delay is actually in time with what I'm playing. So I need the metronome to tell me what is the tempo I'm playing to. Let's try that. Something like that. Yep. Always improvise, always try to see if it's actually fitting your song. What I actually do like is writing down the notes. Since I'm not really a good keyboard player, I write down the notes of the idea I have in my brain, and then I try to get the sound to actually work with the idea of the melody I have for it. But just for now, I'm going to be creating the sound, and that's all. So, a bit less. I'm going to filter out this delay. I like that. I can apply an EQ on top of all of that. After all of that, of course, the sub is not going through there. Well, I don't need that much more of the highs. I already have a lot of those, and I can actually manipulate that right here. But if I wanted something really specific, like this, let's say, or downwards, yep, I like it like that. I want that piece of the frequencies just a bit more tame. And basically, that is it. Now, once all of this is done, you might ask yourself, okay, so you created a sound, you've added all of this insert FX on there. And so far, what we have is one simple modulator, and it's just this envelope controlling this filter. Now, this can tell you two things. You can create sounds with using just one modulator and a lot of FX, or even without a lot of FX, depending on the need. Don't do things just to do them. Have a purpose for them, even in sound design. But also, it's a good thing to experiment. So trying something is never a bad thing. Just be sure to know what you tried, and you can always go back to the sound that you liked. So now I like this sound. I could save it and then try to experiment more, see if I'm going to get something interesting with it. Now, what I would like to try actually is to control some of these parameters on these FX using some of these modulators. First things first, I like the sound of this envelope on the filter, and the entire character of this sound is actually that quick decay of this filter cutoff, making that sound punchy. So let's try that same envelope on some of these parameters right here. So what I could do is actually try to apply this envelope to, let's say, this distortion. So I could add more distortion for that initial punch, although that's going to lose it. Maybe opposite way around, so less distortion on the punch, more distortion on the tail of the sound. I like that better. More bass comes through, not the sub, but the bass. Actually, those frequencies are around 100 up to 200 hertz. I think they come through better with a setting like this. Let's try more of that. Let's try to raise the amount of this phaser on the actual beginning, on that initial punch, because it raises up some frequencies right here. I think that will help with the initial transient of the sound. So you see, if I keep on holding the note, I'm going to get more distortion and less phaser. And basically what's left is this sub-oscillator, since everything that's left from this is already filtered a lot. Let's see how much. I like that even better, with the filter more open, just like that. I like that a lot. Let's see what else could we do to actually make this sound more stereo. So let's say this size. Maybe we could up the size on the initial transient to make the illusion of the sound being grander, bigger. Now when we keep holding, the size goes back to very little. Maybe we can even add some unison to that, and no unison if you hold it. So let's try that too. But that does make this sound quite variable, in a sense that every new note is a bit different since this rate is all the way up. So let's bring the rate all the way down and re-trigger it. So I want each note to sound identical. Yep, I like that. So that's one of the examples. I could add this envelope to more things, but also maybe I can add another kind of envelope by using this LFO and using that as an envelope thing and trying to, let's say, apply that to something in a different way. So let's say it's going to be like this, and then, yeah, a different shape, has more of that beef on the attack, so it's not so punchy. It's less transient oriented. So let's try that on something else. Let's try that on this gain, actually. Let's go reversed. So I'm removing that frequency from the transient. I don't like that. I want that to be in the transient, but not in the actual sound right after, like that. Okay, now I need more sub. So you see, a lot of options. Your imagination is actually the limit to what you can do and how many of these parameters you can modulate. Now we can do similar things in Massive by just using something. Let's try a different sound in Massive. Let's try something else. Let's try something not so punchy, but let's say something like a pad that lasts longer. So this is our amplitude envelope. It's already connected. I'm going to use that like this. No decay, but a stronger attack, stronger release. And you'll see why I'm doing this immediately. So if this is a pad sound, like a string sound, I want it to start gradually and end gradually, like this. A bit higher notes. Something like that. So that when I play one note and then skip to another, they have a gradual crossfading happening between them. That's cool. Okay, so what do we need to do right now? I think this is quite clean for a stringy sound, and starting from a sawtooth is always good for a string sound, but I think it's too clean. So let's try some detuning, some panning. Too loud. That's already better. I think that this envelope can do even more. So give us more attack and more release even. Much better. Now, I already filtered this sound, but let's say I want to use this envelope on the filter as well. Just like that. It's going to be opening slowly. It's really open once it goes all the way up. That's really nice. Now, one other thing I could do is add maybe some chorusing to that. So maybe I want this chorus to go up and down, just like that. Small change. Add something interesting to it, maybe a slower rate. Nice. Maybe I could even add a boosted or no, an attenuated frequency that changes, like somewhere in that pad. Let's try that with the hand. Yeah, I could do with that too. So I'm going to be moving this frequency knob using the same LFO that I used for the chorus movement. So I'm going to be moving that too. So adding some interesting movement to the sound while it's propagating, while it actually stays at its sustain level. So when I'm holding the note, what happens with it is I have some interesting dynamic changes. Something is moving. So let's see what else we could have moving. So some movement, some interesting evolution of the sound while it's propagating. So let's see, I can add another oscillator. And let's see, if this is parallel, I have just a piece of that sound filtered and a piece of that sound not filtered. So I want only this filter 1 to be working. Let's see what I can get from this oscillator by choosing something else. Let's say Flanders. Okay, I like that moving. So I'd like to move that. Let's try another. That's good. Okay, I like that, but this filter opens up a lot, I think. I'm gonna keep it more closed. And I think I would like some reverb added to this. Big reverb with a lot of high frequencies. Something like that. So we can use a lot of these modulators to modulate the filters, the FX sections of everything we're using, and just get a really nice sound design happening using the FX for sound design as a part of sound design, not just the oscillators, the filters. So these are an integral part of that story.